الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. We are so happy, excited and ready for our Friday night program, mashallah. We have a guest speaker visiting us today, Brother Ramiz with the Islamic Circle of North America. I want to take this opportunity to first and foremost thank the guest speaker as well as Brother Omar Sayyid Saab from ICNA for arranging and coordinating this program, mashallah. On such an important topic that is so common and so many people are on either side of the spectrum. So I think it's a very good topic, especially relating to the teenagers, the youth, and also for the parents. Regarding this specific topic, the first part was done with the Everest Academy students, and this is mostly for the parents, mashallah, who are coming. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it beneficial, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it fruitful for us, inshallah. One thing I want to share with you, and we're going to start with the Tilawa of the Quran, is the beautiful ayah in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about regarding taking care of your own nafs and your family members. He says in Surah At-Tahrim, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. That, O you who believe, save yourselves and your family members from the fire. Allah Azza wa Jal says, O you who believe, save yourselves and your family members from the fire. In this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to not just take protection regarding our own nafs, our own life and our own interest, but also to protect our children as well. And when we look at this ayah, a lot of times we think that it just talks about, when it comes to parents' responsibility, the materialistic part, providing them food and clothing and putting them to good school. That is not enough. Parents have another responsibility, and that's a bigger responsibility, and that is tarbiyah. To looking after the emotional, the psychological, and the spiritual needs of the children as well. And it takes a whole village to raise one child and one family. So alhamdulillah, your community, your organization, your masjid, your Islamic center is with you in carrying out this important task, inshallah. I'm going to ask Hafiz Abdullah, who's also a student at Everest Academy, to do a short tilawa of the Quran, and then inshallah we'll get right away to the speaker.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون الظالمون صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, takbir, takbir. Jazakumullah khair. Salatul Isha is at 8:30 and Brother Ramiz has about a presentation that's about 45 minutes, inshallah. And if possible, maybe towards the end, and we are going to pray Salatul Isha at 8:30. If we have some time before that, we can do Q&A too, or no? So if we have some time before that, we can do Q&A. If not, then inshallah we can do Q&A afterwards. So we'll finish at around 25 and then we'll see. If not, then we'll continue after Salatul Isha, inshallah, without any further delay. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Ramiz. I work for ICNA Council for Social Justice. We do anti-bullying workshops around the country for kids and parents. So we provide like basic best practices and guidelines for what to do in situations regarding bullying. Yesterday and this morning, I went to two different Islamic schools, and we did the kids portion, which is where we discuss bullying with kids on what they should do in their situations, what should they do in case something happens at school or something is happening, what type of steps and procedures they need to take in order to deal with bullying. So tonight we're actually just focusing on the parents portion, which is different. Some of the stuff is overlaps a little bit, but a lot of it is also very different, which is more pertaining to parents specifically and what they should do. Okay, so with that we'll get right into it, inshallah. Usually I do make it very interactive. I talk and back and forth between the audience and myself, but because of lack of time, I'm going to be doing the talking and explaining, and then if you have any questions during it, you can just raise your hand if something is not clear, and then I can take a question during it, inshallah. So as with everything, we always start with definitions, so we know what we're talking about, because people have different understandings about different topics, so we need to be sure that we're talking about the same thing, because sometimes the same word means different things to different people. So we need to understand what actually is bullying, okay? So we always start with definition. So what is bullying? Bullying is basically unwanted or aggressive behavior that includes three things. So if any one of these three things is missing, then it's not considered bullying. It might be harassment, it might be like playful teasing or something else, but it wouldn't be considered bullying. Teasing or something else, but it wouldn't be considered bullying. Condition number one is hostile intent, not accident. Meaning that the bully, when he tries to inflict some sort of harm on the child, or not the victim, then he actually means it, or she actually means it. They want to hurt the child emotionally, physically, psychologically. They want to hurt their feelings, whatever that may be. So the bully is actually wanting to cause some sort of harm on the child. It's not like playful teasing, which is very different. This is actually, the kid actually wants to make the kid, another kid, feel bad or hurt. That's condition number one. Condition number two, there's an imbalance of power, meaning the bully has something over the victim. Otherwise, why he would be bullying him or her? So some of the examples include, maybe the bully is physically stronger, maybe he has access to some embarrassing, private information on the child, like he tells her, or he tells her, or he tells him, basically that I know what, like some private information about the child's family, for example, or something private about the child, and he's like threatens the child that if you don't do this or if you don't do that, I'm going to tell everyone that you have this problem in your life. This is happening in your life. So there's some sort of private information that the victim does not want the public to know. So the bully has this information on the child. So this is a form of power imbalance. It could also be popularity. We see cases where the bully is actually not physically stronger than the victim, but the bully has like 10 friends who can back him up or back her up, but the victim has no one, even though he or she is physically stronger. So there's an imbalance of power. So the bully has some sort of power over the victim. And the last condition is that it happens over and over and over again. It's not a one-off thing. It keeps happening. It might be weekly, it might be daily, it might be monthly, but it happens over and over and over again. So this is the textbook definition of bullying. So whenever we talk about bullying in literature, or we talk about like what's like in academic journals, this is what they're talking about. This is what they're saying. This is what they're talking about when it comes to bullying. See, these three conditions. So this is the definition. So now, from now on, whenever I mention bullying, this is what I'm talking about, when this type of behavior. Types of bullying, there are different types of bullying that happen. The most common is the verbal one. This is probably most of the cases. This is what is happening. This is when a child is either teasing, name-calling, inappropriate comments, taunting, threatening. Basically, whenever a child uses their tongue to cause some sort of emotional or psychological like negative impact on another child, this is what is called verbal bullying. Another one is called social bullying, which is a little different, which not a lot of people know about. Examples of this include like leaving someone out on purpose. A popular example of this, which we see often, especially amongst like elementary kids, is that a child will say, okay, you can come to my party, you can come to my party, you cannot come to my party, you can come to my party. So intentionally leaving a child out in order to cause harm, like hurt their feelings or make them feel bad. This is a type of social bullying. It could also be spreading rumors about someone, trying to embarrass someone in public, right? So these are all examples of social bullying. And the last one is physical bullying, which is hitting, spitting. This happens mostly among boys, which is some sort of physical contact between the bully and the victim. There's also cyberbullying, which affects nowadays in our times. This is when basically everything that we just discussed, other than physical bullying, it happens on the digital realm. It could be through social media. We hear about this all the time in the news, where a private information about a child is like, put on the internet, or somebody's making fun of him, or somebody's making fun of the child, and they're putting it on the internet, on social media, or they basically taunt people, taunt like on Instagram, for example. A lot of girls complain about this, where like they get attacked on Instagram for their looks or whatever that may be, and they're taunted on the internet in some way or some form. It could be also through texting, could be forums, gaming. It also includes, like I said, sharing personal or private information about someone on the internet, sharing false, negative, harmful, or mean content about someone. Again, the objective of the bully here is to make the victim feel bad about that, make the victim feel bad or hurt their feelings, and basically isolate them somehow. Now, now the bully is not hurting everyone, right? He's not, or she is not picking on everyone, right? There are certain kids that are being picked on for whatever reason, right? So based on studies, this slide talks about what are the most common factors that are at play, basically, which is causing a bully to target certain types of kids. What are these reasons? One of the most common reasons include students who are seen to be different than their peers. Whenever a child is somehow different than everyone else around them in some way, whatever aspect that may be, and they kind of stand out from the crowd, then they are more likely to get bullied. Some examples include kids who are overweight, for example, somebody who's new in school, somebody who doesn't dress like everyone else in school, right? So those types of things cause a child to be more likely to be bullied. Students who belong to an ethnic or religious minority, we hear about this a lot, for example, like a black kid in a predominantly white school, for example, or a hijabi girl in a predominantly non-Muslim school. But even in Islamic schools, I've heard over the years so many times that kids do get, like black kids in Islamic schools will get teased or picked on because of the color of their skin. So they're more likely to get bullied. Students who are seen to be weak or have low self-esteem. So kids who have like very, very low self-esteem about themselves, like, that I'm too ugly, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too dark, whatever it may be, from wherever they got these ideas from, which is already killing their low self-esteem. They have low self-confidence, and because of that, bullies are more likely to pick on such a child as well, because they're easy targets and they don't usually stand up for themselves, so they are more likely to get bullied as well. Students who have few friends or who are unpopular, if again they somehow stand out from the crowd for whatever reason, kids don't want to be friends with them for whatever reason, maybe certain personality traits, but if they somehow stand out, then they are more likely to get bullied as well. Effects of being bullied. So in this slide, we talk about the impact that bullying has. A lot of people think that bullying is just part of childhood. Every child has to go through. A lot of parents think that. But the reality is that a lot of parents are confusing bullying with like playful teasing, which everyone goes through in life. That's not what we're talking about. Bullying is very, very different. Bullying is actually a form of trauma that happens to a child. And there's a lot of long-term impact that a child has to go through because of a bullying experience. And over the years that we've gone to like conferences on anti-bullying, we've seen so many cases and met so many people who have actually talked about their bullying experience. And because of that experience that they had as a child, till this day, they are still like, they have communication issues, they have trust issues, they're on antidepressants. There are a lot of damage that has been done. And they have even been documenting cases of kids who were bullied as kids. People who were bullied as kids, they have like PTSD even when they get older. So it is a traumatic experience that a child goes through psychologically, emotionally, and which is very, very damaging, and it could have dire impacts, negative impacts, even in their adult life. So some of these include kids who are bullied are more likely to be depressed, they're more likely to have anxiety, they are more likely to feel sad, loneliness. There are changes in eating and sleeping patterns. We ask parents always to, like, if your child somehow all of a sudden has a complete change in eating patterns or sleeping patterns, they're not sleeping the way that they usually do, or they're not eating properly like the way they usually do, it's good to investigate what's happening. Maybe something's happening in school, something's going on, but because it happens because the child is usually so stressed out about what's going to happen. I'm going to see him in the hallway tomorrow, or she's going to make a comment. She's going to make a comment to me tomorrow, and I have to deal with that tomorrow. So because of the stress that they feel in that moment, what happens is that they can't eat, they can't think, they can't sleep properly because they're so stressed out about the experience of what will happen tomorrow. Decrease in academic performance, yes. A child is doing really well in school, right? And all of a sudden their grades start going down. And one of the reasons might be because of a bullying experience that is happening in school. Again, they go to school, they can't concentrate on their homework or the assignment, or they can't pay attention because there's constant teasing that is happening in the classroom, or they're afraid, I'm going to go in the hallway, I'm going to see that kid again, or so-and-so is going to say something to me at lunch. And because they're so stressed out about that whole experience that they're going to have, their grades start impacting as well. Lost interest in an activity that they used to enjoy. So we see this as well. For example, a child says, I want to be in I want to go to soccer, I want to play soccer. So they put them in a soccer game, right? And a few weeks later, I hate soccer, I never want to go back again. And then you ask the child, why, what happened? I don't know, I don't want to talk about it. So I think from that you can kind of conclude something happened on the field. So those types of signs we ask parents to always watch out for in their children, in their kids, because that could be an indication that something is happening. Not always, but it's good to check that out and see what's happening. So before we're getting into an exclusive. So the slide that I just discussed, we kind of discussed with both, with kids and parents. Now from here on is only the parent section, like that things that we talked to them about. So before I continue, are there any questions? Any questions before we continue? Okay, this is good. We can go faster. Okay, so these are the numbers that were done by CARE California. So this is just in the state of California, by the way, so I just want you to understand how bad it is. So 53% of Muslim students said that they had some sort of religious-based bullying in schools in California, which is actually twice the national average. And 52% of Muslim kids said that they were verbally abused or verbally bullied in some way or some format. Between 2014 and 2017, Muslim students said that the Muslim students reporting physical harassment and assault jumped from 9 to 19%. 38% of students Muslim students said that they were actually bullied by a teacher or a school official. These are non-Muslim public schools that we're talking about here. And only 32% of youth in California said that reporting a bullying problem actually made a difference, which is very, very concerning, which is saying that most kids say that when they report their issue to an adult, it doesn't make a difference. The bullying actually continues to happen, nothing changes. And that's one of the reasons most kids do not tell their parents. When I do this usually with kids alone, I always ask Muslim kids, like, how many of you would actually tell your parents that you were bullied, if you were being bullied? And almost always, about 90% or 80 to 90%, they said they will not tell their parents if they were being bullied. And if you ask them why is that the case, they always say one of two things. They always say either because my parents will not do anything, they will either say to ignore it, right? Or they will say that they will make such a fuss about it, they'll come to my school, they'll completely embarrass me. And then, and it'll just make the things even worse, right? It's one of these two extremes that they cite the reason as why they will not tell their parents. Now, I do understand. Now, these are like these are kids in public schools, but I don't want you to get from this that it's not happening in Islamic schools. So here in Houston, I did it in 2 Islamic schools, and they both said, the teachers in both of those schools said that yes, there's bullying happening in our schools. So it's not uncommon. It's just a very common problem. I've even heard of like cases in Hifz schools where kids are constantly bullied. I did this workshop in Connecticut a few months ago, and they were telling me that there was a Hifz school there, and this one kid was being so severely bullied by the other Hifz kids in that classroom, including the Hifz teacher himself as well, that he actually left Hifz school. He said, I never want to memorize the Quran. He actually dropped the class and he said, I don't want to touch the Quran again. So that's the experience that he went through in that Hifz school. So I want you to just imagine this is happening in schools, and Islamic schools. Yes, it is happening in Islamic schools as well. It's happening in Hifz schools, it's happening in Sunday schools, and it's happening in public schools. So it does take place and it does happen. Okay, so what should you do if your child is being bullied? So the number of things that we can do. Number one, do not tell them to ignore it or suck it up, which is the most common number one response from parents, especially from fathers that kids hear. You have to realize as parents that when a child comes to you and he tells you that he or she is being bullied, okay, they've already tried ignoring it, because the natural response to a person who is engaged in a a altercation, like somebody who's stronger than them, bigger than them, or has more power over them, right? And they're picking on them. The first reaction that most children do is ignore it. So when they come to you and they tell you that so there's a bully that's picking on me, or somebody's making fun of me, or somebody's doing this to me, you need to realize that they've already tried ignoring it, right? So when you tell them to ignore it, you are basically telling them that, that thing that you did in the beginning that didn't work, keep doing that. That's how they translate it in their mind. So that's why, it's very, very important that you do not tell your child to ignore it. You have to basically deal with it and figure out a solution with your child. The first thing we tell parents to do is that whenever you enroll your kid in a school, you need to review your school and district policies. Usually schools always have some sort of a policy that if your child is bullied at our school, this is the procedure, or these are the steps that you need to take. So you as a parent, it's your responsibility to note those procedures down and write them down and know them inside out. What is my school doing to protect my children? Okay, you need to know that. You need to, because you are putting your kids in these schools 7 hours a day, right? You're not seeing them 8 hours a day. Your kids see other kids more than they see you throughout the day, right? So you need to make sure they're in a safe environment. So if they're not in a safe environment, then it's your responsibility as a child to protect your child. So you have the right to know, what is the school going to do in case there is a bullying situation. So you have to review the policy of your school, what the bullying, who the point of contact is, what channels do I need to go to, right? What's the procedure? You need to know all of that. And if your school doesn't provide you one, which is sometimes is the case with Islamic schools, then you need to contact the school and ask them and demand it from them that, hey, tell me, what is your procedure? What do I need to do in case my kid is being bullied? What should I do? And you need to give me a point of contact. Who do I contact? What's the process? What's the procedure? So you need to know that inside out. And often we see cases, sometimes there's a bullying situation, and the case escalates, right? Now the parents want to sue the school, right? Because of what happened to their kid, because he's traumatized, or he ended up in a hospital, or whatever it may be. The first thing the school does is protect itself. The first thing the school will say that, hey, this parent signed a contract with us in the beginning of the year, right? With our policies, and our policies has certain procedures a parent needs to take. They need to fill out this paperwork, they need to send an email to this person, and this parent did not follow any of those guidelines that we provided, that they signed to in the beginning of the year, right? So now the school is protected, and now you can't sue the school either. You can't go after the school because they've gotten themselves out. So this is why it's very important for parents to understand what the procedure and the policy of my school is to protect my children, okay? So always make sure you note it down and write it out and know the whole process. Number two, inform the school about your concerns right away. So whenever your child comes home, after investigating the situation, what happened? Is it repetitive? What did he say? How often does this happen? What was he trying to do? How, after determining, yeah, this does qualify as a bullying situation, you have to inform the school immediately. Okay, you have to tell them, my child came home, this is what he said, what are you going to do to protect my child? Okay, what are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? So you as a parent have the right to know what they're going to do to protect your child. If your child is being traumatized, either physically, emotionally, or psychologically, then you have the right to know, how are you going to protect my child? Otherwise, I'm not going to keep sending my kid to your school if they're being traumatized in this way. So you need to inform your school immediately, and always follow up. You have to follow up. If you need to set up a meeting with them, follow it up with an email. Hey, we talked a few days ago. I'm just getting an update. What happened? Is some action being taken to make sure that this doesn't happen? And again, or that you have put a stop to this in whatever matter that they have. Now, if the bullying does not stop and it continues even then, when it comes to public schools, we have like what we call the golden chain. Okay, so number one, you start with a teacher. Okay, you start with a teacher, right? You contact the teacher, and you say, my kid came home, and he said or she said they were being bullied. Okay, please tell me what you're going to do. Continues. It doesn't happen. The teacher hasn't taken any action. Your child is still being your child is still being bullied. Then what you do, you contact the principal of the school, okay, and you CC the teacher. Hey, I talked to the teacher. I wrote everything out. I told her I need a response. She hasn't gone back to me. My kid is still being bullied, okay. And then you go. If you still don't get a response, then you reach out to the superintendent of the county, right, or of that school, and then you CC the teacher and you CC the principal. And I assure you, by that time, you will get their attention, okay. If that still doesn't work, then you go to the school board. Same thing. You email the school board, you CC the superintendent, principal, and the teacher, and you let them know that, hey, this is what happened, and my child is continuing to being bullied in school, and they're not doing anything about it, okay? And then you can even go to the U.S. government and like file a case against your school if it goes that far. Usually in China, you don't need to go this far, but this is what we call the golden chain. Now, a lot of parents ask who send their kids to Islamic schools because they don't have this, because they're private schools. What should they do? So to be honest, that's a good question. We've been thinking about this for a while. The best thing we can come up with, that same thing. You start with the teacher, you go to the principal, and then you go to the board of directors or whoever in charge that person is. You can even make a coalition with other parents at the school and maybe go together as a coalition, as a PTA coalition, and like confront the school that this is happening in our school and you're not doing anything about it. We need you to take an action and end this bullying situation that is happening at your school. So you can so the parents together as a coalition can come together. They can get the board of directors involved and have a meeting with the principal and the teacher, get everyone involved, and make sure that this incident comes to an end. Also, sometimes, a lot of parents don't like to admit it, but sometimes your child might be the one who's the bully. And a lot of times when we do get cases of parents coming and then saying that, my child is being bullied, and this person's father, and I've met with him, I've told him that your kid is bullying my kid, and he always says that he's going to do something, he's going to stop it, but nothing happens, and the kid is continuing to bully our other kids. So what should you do if your child is the bully? Number one, you have to make it clear that their behavior is unacceptable. It will have consequences and needs to stop immediately. You have to basically communicate to your child that what they're doing is wrong and that they will have consequences, there's going to be punishment, and that they need to stop immediately, and the parents have to be assertive about it, make sure that the child understands. And you must follow through with the consequences. A lot of parents, they say that if this happens again, we're going to take this privilege away, but when that happens, they never do that to their child. What happens is when you do that to your child, you're not teaching them that that their actions are going to have consequences. If they keep thinking that my parents are really not going to do anything about it, then they're going to basically continue that behavior. So make sure that you follow through with the consequences that you tell them, whatever those consequences or punishments that you have in place. Help them recognize how it makes the victim feel. So this is about empathy. You have to make your child understand, okay, why did you pick on that kid? Why did you think it was okay to make that comment? Why did you hit that kid? Why did you make that comment? Rationalize to me why you thought that was a good idea. Like, tell me, why do you think that was a good idea? Don't you understand how do you think that would make the child feel, right? How would it make you feel if somebody did that to you? What if somebody did that to you, to your younger sibling, if they have siblings, right? or your parents or something like that. This is not something good to do. So you have to communicate and make the child feel like empathy for the victim. Encourage them to perform an act of kindness, because when you do act of kindness, it basically, it boosts something inside you. Because a lot of kids, they have insecurities. Some kids who bully other kids, they have insecurities, right? So when they do acts of kindness or charity, it makes them feel good. So usually when they're bullying other kids, it's making them feel good about themselves, right? So when they find something new, that hey, if I can also do something good and actually feel good about myself, so you're basically giving them an alternative of, hey, there's other ways to make yourself feel good, and one of them is doing good or doing acts of kindness or being good to other people. Ask them to reflect on why they are doing it. Again, this goes back to the rationalization. You need to ask them, like, rationalize to me, why did you think that was a good comment to make? Why do you think that it was a good idea to pick on that child? Why do you think it was a good idea to, say that about that person? Why did you hit him? Why did you punch him? Why do you think, tell me, rationalize to me, why do you think this was a good idea? Now, some kids, they have anger issues, right? So every parent knows their child. Like, I have, a parent can say, okay, my child has, these are his or her strengths, and these are his or her weaknesses. So if your child has anger management issues, right, then you have to teach them how to control that anger, right? Anger management issues. It could be through therapy, it could be counseling, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You need to figure out how to deal with anger management. Like, my child has anger management issues, they can't manage their anger, so I need to learn to teach my child how to control their anger. Like when they throw a tantrum, for example, how do they calm themselves down? How do you calm yourself down? How do you not overreact? So you have to teach your child that. So if your child is of that category, and some kids are naturally that way, they have anger management issues, they have very assertive personalities, so you have to basically teach them how to control their actions. Some kids have communication issues. Like I said, some kids naturally they have difficulty following directions. For example, again, if your child is suffering from something, it might be a mental illness or it might be something else, but if they have communication issues, then you need to teach your child how to compromise, because this life is all about compromising, right? In a civil society, we get along with each other by compromising constantly with each other, right? That's how you get along in life. You compromise with each other. So you have to teach your children how to compromise with other people. You might not like somebody that's doing something. That doesn't mean you pick on them, or that doesn't mean you bully them or harass them or make them feel bad about themselves. So you have to teach that to your child. If your child has low self-confidence, then make them feel better about themselves. Always encouraging them, make sure that, like a lot of kids who bully other kids, they have insecurities, like, I'm not smart enough, for example, right? Or I'm too weak, or maybe I'm not good looking enough, or whatever that may be. That insecurity is basically makes them lash out on other kids that they think have that strength that they're lacking. So if you make your child feel like self-confident, like, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with this, we can work on this together and build this out, then that will help them, inshallah, have higher confidence as well. Know their friends. This is very important. Yes, as a parent, you have every right to know who your kids are hanging out with, and if they're hanging out with the wrong company, right, which is making them behave that way, then you have the right to, say, okay, maybe you should not be hanging out with those kids. And I know of so many cases of kids who bully other kids, not because they want to. They know it's wrong, but they do it just to fit in with a certain crowd that they're hanging out with at school who bullies other kids. So they only want to be part of that crowd because they want to be accepted in that group. And the only way to get accepted is to behave like them. If they don't behave like them, they cannot be part of that group. So if your kids are hanging out with that type of crowd, right, and you can get that by through conversation, like, why did you bully that kid? What happened? And they'll tell you, like, the friends made me do it. I didn't want to do it. They were doing it. They told me to do it. I didn't want to do it. I told them not to do it, but they didn't listen to me. In that situation, maybe you need to talk to have a conversation with the child that if they're impacting your actions in this way and turning you into a bully, then maybe that's not a good company that you want to surround yourself with. Some general tips for parents that we have is that lead by example and respect others. The parents are the number one teachers for their kids. And yes, we do also see cases of kids who bully other kids because they see their parents bullying other people, members in the community, for example, right? That happens as well. Like the father is constantly making fun of other people, and making fun of them, making racial comments, making demeaning comments towards other people. So the kid goes to school and does the same thing. So So you have to lead by example. You have to make sure you respect other people, and you lead example for your kids that we treat people with respect and dignity, and we don't treat other people with disrespect. Teach them positive, non-violent responses to abusive behavior. Yes, just because people treat you a certain way, there are certain ways to react. You don't have to always be violent, for example. There are other ways to react. Also, if somebody's bullying you, there are other ways to react, for example, as well, like getting help and things like that. Build in them strong self-confidence, positive self-image. Like I said, one of the most common reasons kids get bullied is either because they have low self-confidence. So make sure that you are always building your kids up, and they have high self-confidence, they have high self-image, and they don't degrade themselves in negative ways. One example I have here is enroll them in self-defense classes, which does a lot, but this is not the only one. You can do other things too that raises their self-confidence as well. Create a loving home and environment. Also, this is very important. Some examples I have here: treat them with respect, no physical or emotional abuse. Over the years, I've heard from many Muslim sisters that a lot of them get very emotionally abused from their mothers. Like the mother will tell them, you're too brown, you're too fat, you're too ugly, no one's gonna marry you, and things like that. Now, from the mother's perspective, you might be thinking, I'm just trying to help her out, in her mind, right? But it's actually landing on the ears as something abusive, which it is like verbal abuse. But the mother is not seeing it that way for some reason, for whatever reason, right? And so over the years, a couple sisters have come up to me and said that, my mother is when I was growing up, she was so abusive, and I still have trauma because of the emotional abuse that my mother was telling, was giving to me as a child. So what happens is these girls, when they have this emotional trauma happening at home, they go to school, they hear the same thing from other kids, right? Like, you're too brown, you're too black, you're too fat, you're too this, you're too ugly, right? And she's hearing the same thing, so she starts believing and internalizing that stuff. So that completely kills her self-confidence, right? So when it kills her self-confidence, right, bullies are able to keep having that abuse, and she's not able to stand up for herself because she starts internalizing and believing these things. So you have to be very, very careful in how you express your feelings and how you treat your children in your home. So please do not do any type of emotional or physical abuse. Actively listen to your kids. It's very, very important to listen to your kids. When your kids come home and they talk to you, especially at a young age, right? That's the moment in time when you want to have that open communication. Because when your kid does have an episode when they are being bullied at school, you want them to be able to come home and talk to you. And if you never built those lines of communication from a young age, and then when they get older, they're just going to build a wall in between you and them, and they're not going to share that information with you. Why? Because you were never open with them. So when they are children, and they're talking all the time and sharing everything that happened in their class, right? That's the point of their life, to have that open communication and make them understand that I am listening to you, I hear you, right? So they understand that my parents talk to me, they hear me, they care about what I have to say, even at a young age. So when they continue to grow up, you always have that lines of communications open with them. Do not allow mistreatment, meaning if your sibling, if you have multiple kids, you make sure that one kid is not abusing the other kid, right? Or not bullying the other kid in the house. And a lot of parents, they let that go. Like older sibling is picking on and making fun of the younger kid, and the parents are letting it happen, and they don't really get involved. This is very, very bad for their self-confidence. It brings it down. And again, that might get the repetitive behavior of that kid who's being bullied at home. He's going to go to school and do the same thing to other kids as well. Allow expression of opinion. It's important to allow your kids to express their opinions. So why? Because it raises their self-confidence, and it creates a loving and a healthy home environment. Create a culture of accountability. Make sure that in your home, your kids know that you have rules in the house. Okay, you have rules in the house, and those rules have to be followed. Okay, they don't have to like the rules, but they have to follow the rules. Why? Because when they're in a school environment, right, you want to teach your kids that when you are in an environment, there are certain rules in society that we have. There are certain rules in masjid that they go to. There are certain rules in schools that they go to. They have to follow that. But it comes and starts from the home. If you don't teach them from the beginning that in our house there are certain rules you have to follow, when they go out, then I never had rules in the house. Why do I have to follow rules now? So they don't mind breaking them in school and in society as well, because they never learn in the house that there are certain things that cannot be done. These are our rules, and if we don't do them, there's accountability that takes place and that happens. So to create a culture of accountability. Recognize and look for signs which may indicate that your child is being bullied. I mentioned some of them earlier, like their eating patterns change, their tastes change, their sleeping patterns change, like activities that they used to enjoy now they no longer enjoy, right? So you have to recognize signs. Maybe your son comes home with a black eye. What happened? Oh, I fell down the stairs. Come on, you really fall down the stairs? Like, so your child, a girl comes home, she's crying her tears. What happened? Nothing. I don't want to talk about it. Something happened, so you have to get that out. So recognize signs, look for signs to indicate that your child might be being bullied, because as a parent, it's your responsibility to protect your children. Get to know the staff of the school, right? Yeah, you have to know who's at your school, who's teaching at my school. And this is why we always tell parents to get involved with the PTA, because that's the only way you're going to know what's happening at your school, who's teaching, what's the latest curriculum, what changes are happening, what's the latest stuff, what's the latest rules that are happening, that are taking place in school, like what's happening, what's the latest things that we need to worry about as a school, right? So that you're going to learn that at the PTA. So always get involved in your child's school, know everybody at your child's school, who's there. They should know you by name. Teach self-protection techniques and role play. Yes, so you should go through like a role play with your child after learning like what you should do in a bullying situation. Sit your children down and tell them, okay, you're going to pretend to be a victim and you're going to pretend to be a bully, and then you're going to reverse the roles. Why? You're going to teach them, okay, how do you like react in that situation? If somebody's saying this to you, somebody does it to you, how do you basically handle yourself in that situation through role playing to make them understand and learn how to deal with it. This is the last slide, which is about how to raise self-confident kids. We added this slide because, like I said earlier, one of the main reasons kids get bullied is because they have low self-confidence and they have low self-esteem. There's certain techniques that you can utilize in your child's life to help them raise their self-confidence. Number one, help them develop competence, meaning that you need to make that your children are independent somehow, right? And the only way to do that is to make them competent. Find something that they're good at, right? Something that they're good at, like, and encourage them on it more and more. It helps them become more self-confident. So, becoming more and more independent. Let them take healthy risks. Some parents are very, very overprotective, right? That actually kills their self-confidence, right? So when you are too overprotective, that you don't let them take any risks, then that has a very, very bad impact on children. And there's a reason for that. Now, I want you to think of this scenario. If your child is being bullied at school, right? If your child is being bullied at school, and we all want that our kid be able to stand up and get help, right? So in your child's mind, when he or she is being bullied, standing up to that bully by getting help or telling an adult or getting some sort of resolution to the situation, in your child's mind, that is a risk that he or she is taking. Okay, that is a risk that he or she is taking. If you don't teach your child to take risks as children, they will never take a risk when something like that happens, because you never taught them. You've always taught them to be safe. And what is the safe thing to do in a situation when you're being bullied is to stay quiet and just keep taking the abuse and just pray that the year ends as soon as possible. Just ending, because that's the safe thing to do in their mind, because they don't want to take a risk, because you never taught them how to take risks. That's why we always tell kids. That's why the experts that say you should always encourage your kids to take healthy risks, which are age appropriate for them, which is very, very, very important. So they learn, because in this life they're going to have to take a lot of risks, okay? Because life is not easy, and a lot of times when you have to stand up for yourself, you are taking a risk, either losing your job or it's a bully, whatever it is. You are taking a risk, but if you never learned how to take risks, then you will not be able to take risks. Make them feel loved and secure. Every child wants to be loved and secure, and if they don't get that at home, right, then they're basically self-confidence goes really down. So when you give your child like love and security, and they feel secure that my parents love me no matter what, and they will protect me no matter what, their self-confidence will go up. And like I said, whenever I interview kids, like Muslim kids on their own, in isolation, I ask them, how many of you will tell your parents if you were bullied or not? About 80-90% always said that they will never tell their parents. And the reason is because they don't trust their parents. They don't trust their parents that their parents will actually protect them. Okay, so which is actually very, very concerning. So make sure that your child feels that, yeah, I am loved, and my parents will do whatever it takes to protect me. Okay, if I am in a situation, and they won't tell me to just ignore it or let it go. Also, do not overpraise, because this also kills their self-confidence, and also your children can actually usually see it when you're being, like you're being fake. Like my parents, they just praise everything. Whatever I do, they praise everything. After a while, basically, it becomes superficial. So So make sure that you do not overpraise your kids. Your praise must always be very specific and should be earned. It should be very, very specific and it should be earned for a particular task that actually requires some sort of effort. And the focus of the praise should always be the result. The focus of the praise should always be the effort and not the result. It should always be the effort, never the result. Why? Because the results are not in your hands. They're in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Your kids will never get the result, but they need to put in the effort, right? You need to encourage the effort. So if your child comes home and they fail the exam, they fail the test, which was a major test, but they work their butt off. They study so hard, right? In that case, you in that situation, you should still praise the effort. Yeah, you didn't pass the exam, but I saw you were studying day and night. You still failed. It's okay. We'll try again. Doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. It's just a test. We can do it again. That's the type of mindset you want your child to have. Because what happens is, a lot of parents, they focus on the results. And then what happens is, when you become so focused on the results and the child fails at something, they become depressed. And it kills their it kills their self-confidence and self-esteem, because now they're so focused on the result. Because everything becomes about the result. And when they go out in life, and they constantly fail, in which they will throughout life, you're going to have constant failures. It basically kills them even more. So it's actually a life lesson. That's why you should always praise the effort. A child should be raised thinking that, you know what, as long as I try my best, even if I fail, I don't care, as long as I tried, because I was trying, because as long as I tried, I put in the effort, yeah, I'm okay with that. That's like a very, very confident child, which will eventually turn into a very confident adult as well. So this is why we always tell parents to keep the focus on the effort and not the result. Let them help around the house. Yeah, at a young age, you should start, giving your kids tasks, like, you're going to take out the trash on Mondays and Tuesdays. You're going to clean the toilets or whatever it is, right? And in our, a lot of time in our culture, we put a lot of that burden on the sisters, on the girls, but not so much on the boys. And then we wonder why they're still 22 years old playing video games for hours on end, right? So because we don't train them properly from a young age. So it's very, very important to give your children like duties and tasks and responsibilities around the house from a young age. Why? Because as soon as they are able to. Why? Because it helps raise their self-confidence. Encourage them to pursue their interests. This is very important. A lot of times parents want to make copycats of their kids. Like, one kid is very good at math and science, and they want to make a copycat of that kid amongst the other ones too. But the other kids are not good at math and science. Maybe one other kid is very artistic. The another kid is very sporty, for example, right? So it's very important to understand, what are my kid's strengths? Okay, what is he or she good at? And once you find it, right, cultivate it and grow it and encourage it, right? Why? Because that will very, very much boost their self-confidence. So if your kid is very good at math and science, put them in math camps or science camps. That's fine. If your kid is very artistic, right, for example, right, put him in an art class. Okay. If your child is very sporty, they love sports, put them in a sports club or something like that. But find whatever that they're good at, that they want to do, and build it and cultivate it and grow it. It helps with self-confidence. If they fail or struggle, make clear that you love them regardless. This is very important. Again, your kids will constantly fail, right? And it's very important that they understand that no matter what happens, even if I fail, right, my parents don't hate me, okay? They do love me still, as long as I try. That's the type of mentality you want your kids to have. Your kids should never feel that I did something wrong, now my parents are gonna, hate me. I got an F on the, test, and my dad really was looking forward to it, or I didn't get into medical school, whatever it is, and now they're gonna hate me and this and that. I didn't become an engineer, or whatever that is, right? They should never feel that they cannot come to you and talk to you and say, you know what, it's okay. You tried, it didn't work, it's okay. We still love you, you're still okay. No problem. Ban harsh criticism. I discussed this earlier about the situation with the sisters. Let them help others and give. Again, very important. Get your kids involved, like in soup kitchens or at the masjid or at the fundraisers. Make sure they're helping out. They're part of the community. Why? Because it helps raise self-confidence. When kids know that they are doing something good, they're contributing to the society, they help somebody else's life make better. They made a difference in somebody's life, even if it means just handing a homeless person like a box of food, for example. Yeah, that's a difference that they made in that person's life on that day. It helps boost their self-confidence and makes them feel good about themselves. So these are some of the tips that we have for how to raise self-confident kids. In conclusion, and I know Isha is coming now, we have some of these resources that you can go to. By the way, I have this whole workshop recorded on our website as well, so you can watch it if you want to give it to someone. They can watch the whole one. I have the whole version, the kids version as well as the parents version on the website, so they can go and watch it. And all these slides that you just saw, you can download them from our website as well. There's also a app called No Bullying app. I'm not sure if it's still active or not, but I remember a few years ago it was very popular in anti-bullying conferences. So it teaches you how it goes into a lot more detail, and it's for Android and iPhone, from what I recall. And it goes into a lot more detail on what to do in situations of bullying, how to get help, what are some of the procedures you need to take. These are some other popular websites on the topic: stopbullying.gov, nobullying.com, and stopoutbullying.org. These are all organizations that work around bullying issues. And ing.org is actually a Muslim organization, and they do some work on anti-bullying as well. And lastly, there's a survey. If you want to fill that out, that would be great. Inshallah, it helps us out. And we are a non-profit organization, so we do this free. We don't charge any money or anything like that. But if anybody wants to give money to the organization, we're happy to take it. It helps us keep going and keep doing this for free. And that's it. Jazakallah khair. Now, I think we have, 5 minutes? Where's the imam? So if anyone has any questions, we can take them now. Otherwise, we can just end it. No problem, inshallah. Okay, the kids had more questions when I did it with them. Okay, so this is good. Jazakallah khair for coming. No, it's fine. Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah khair, Brother Ramiz. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. And you must have done a really good job that everybody's satisfied and no questions, mashallah. Thank you so much to Brother Umar Sayyid and ICNA team for bringing Brother Ramiz out and doing a workshop on this very important topic. I hope that mashallah was beneficial for all of you. Everybody learned a lot? Yes? Yes? No more bullying? Don't bully, okay? No more bullying. And don't become the victim of bullies as well. Alright? Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. We're going to do adhan. And right after that, inshallah, Salatul Isha is 8:30. And after that, we have pizza outside. Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Dude.